Welcome to the Startup of Human Potential. We're your co-hosts,
I'm Clifton,
and I'm Victoria.
and together we're Faces of the Future. Faces of the Future is a personal development platform at the intersection of consciousness, innovation, and well-being. We're excited to have you join us on our show.
Yeah, and today we're joined by our good friend Jorge Patrono.
Hello, guys.
Jorge is a music and video creator passionate about science and spirituality. He introduces a lot of more esoteric and spiritual concepts to the global Hispanic community, and he works as a bridge between the international market and the Latin market in the edutainment industry, helping them bring that information into everyday life. And his latest project he's working on is a documentary about science and spirituality called Your Life, Your Creation. In Spanish, it's called Tu Vida, Tu Creación. I hope that pronunciation was okay.
Yes, that's right.
And it's a bilingual project featuring 28 experts from all over the world. He's got the big shots in there like Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Gregg Braden, Marianne Williamson, just to name a few. Jorge works with sound and light frequencies and different technologies related to human energy, electrophotonic imaging, structured water, heart and brain coherence, and sacred geometry. So, all of this body of work that Jorge has assimilated through his whole life is working a lot on health prevention, right? So, Jorge, we're so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. So, just to catch our listeners up, I want to introduce how we met Jorge. We met Jorge when we were working on a water project. We were exploring different ways that water can fuel consciousness, from like structured water to alkaline water. And here we are today.
After a long time.
Yeah. Yes.
A couple of years passed already.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, with all of this, Jorge, how did it start? You've got many different projects going on, but how did it all start?
I started as a musician. My father was a big producer in Argentina for Capitol Records for many, many years. And I grew up in recording studios, radio stations, and TV sets, and I have it in my blood. So, but the main thing for me was the drums. I mean, I always was attracted to the drums, and since I was 2 years old. And when I was 11, I had my teacher for the first time when I was 11 years old, and since then I never stopped. It's my passion. And later on, I understood how good it was for me to become a drummer, because any instrument is amazing. Any musical instrument is amazing for the development of your brain. But the more limbs that you use to learn independently how to move them, for example, the drums, you have 4 limbs. Now you have a brain that has 2 hemispheres. Everything works in parallel from the factory. We come from the factory with everything parallel, okay? Now, the moment that you want to do something crossing information from one brain to the next one, to the other one hemisphere, and you need to learn that. You need to create a cabling of that. And that is the only way is practicing,
So, what's an example of that, Jorge? How do you cross them?
Well, if I move my right hand, I try to move it at the same time as my left foot.
Oh, I see. Okay.
When you try to do this both together, you can't.
Yeah. Also, drummers are usually crossing their hands and like the right.
Well, that's another problem. But we are talking about the 2 hemispheres. You have one right side, one left side.
Gotcha.
Okay. So you move the right leg and the right arm at the same time, no problem. The left, no problem. When you cross them,
got it.
left, right, or left, right, you have to learn it. And those are connections that you're creating.
Yeah.
Now, after many, many years and studying with different scientists and all this stuff, I realized that gives you what is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is when you can jump from one side to the other one and put everything in the same context, because the right side is more, creative and passionate and intuitive. The other one is logic. You think a lot, you analyze. So when you put them together, it's like analyzing, but at the same time being in the flow, okay, or open to receive information from the quantum field and then logically put it into this field. So you are using both, okay? So you are complete. Actually, the brain is working as one unit. Usually it's working as one unit, but the thing is, well, we are very logical, we are very emotional, and at the same time, we are jumping from one side to the other. So our life is also jumping from one thing to the other. It's very difficult to project yourself. Now, neuroplasticity is very important. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, and Bruce Lipton also in Epigenetics. So without knowing, the drums helped me to be part of that experiment, okay, and to put it into my life since I was very, very young. So I believe that that's one thing. I believe that every kid should grow up learning some instrument, guitar, piano, whatever it is, because actually it brings so much openness between heart and brain, the physical body, the stress. You release a lot of stress and anxiety. I mean, there's so many things that are really good. So unfortunately, some schools right now don't have a music course or something to support them. It should be as it should be also physical activity, the sports, both things.
Right.
But I believe that music is essential when you grow up. And now, when I was 30 years old, I realized that in my career, I was already a professional musician as a drummer. That was the only thing that I was doing, playing the drums. And I decided to come to the United States because I wanted to go further with my in my country. I was already at the top on that, and I said, well, what else can I do? And all my mentors were here. Okay, all the great musicians that I follow, their whole life, they were here. So I said, well, I came to the United States. I came to Los Angeles. I had an aunt and a cousin that lived here for many, many years. And so I came and I studied percussion and drums with an amazing teacher that was very old, 80 something, 85 years old, almost blind, but he was the best teacher in Los Angeles. Every professional went to see him. It was only for professionals. He didn't teach anybody that was not a professional. So I had to wait for 6 months. I was in the waiting list and I studied with him for 2 years. And after that, I started working with different musicians, and I realized that I had ideas to compose music. I never composed before, and I started composing music, and then I started producing groups at that time, the Grammys were, there was no Latin Grammys. It was only one Grammy, which is the American Grammy, but it was 3 categories for Hispanic Latin music. Okay, so the one that I worked on was Best Mexican American Performance. That was the name of the category. And why that? Well, I didn't know English. So when I came here, I started working with the Mexican musicians because Los Angeles is full of Mexican musicians. So I started working with them and I understood their music and different things. And then I realized that I could compose and produce. I did it, and I got 2 Grammy nominations out of that.
Wow.
1990 and 1992. Long, long time ago. Many, many moons ago. So I'm pretty old, as you can deduct out of that. So the thing is, after that, I started thinking about video production, and I met a producer from one of the big networks in the United States in Spanish, Univision, from Miami, and we started producing musical shows for the Hispanic market. So I learned vision production, and because I learned that, afterwards, I mean, many, many years later, I was able to do the documentary because before it was impossible for me. So I learned how to edit, how to use After Effects, all that stuff. Now, the transition between being a musician and doing what I'm doing right now, which is edutainment, which is education through entertainment. I'm not interested in music for entertainment. I'm interested in music for frequency use, okay, based on the frequencies. And I can see that the frequencies are amazing. Is everything? It's everywhere.
How did you come to that conclusion? Because our listeners, some might know that frequency is really important, some might not. How did you come to that realization?
I mean, there are a couple of geniuses before that mentioned this. Like everybody knows Tesla, and Tesla said everything is energy, vibration, and frequencies. There's nothing else. Einstein said it also. And then Royal Rife in 1930 was starting to use frequencies to cure any disease, especially cancer. And he was successful 100%. So when you see that, it's like, wow, man, there's something that we are missing.
Mhm.
We are not understanding actually what we are and what this is. Okay. Whatever we see and we touch,
Mm.
and we can tune in with the five senses that we have. In the documentary, I put in Your Life of Creation, I made an association between the power of our five senses
Mhm.
and the reality of all the frequencies that are in the universe
Mhm.
that we cannot even contemplate or tune in.
Mhm.
And it's the same as a grain of sand in comparison to the Empire State. So
Mhm.
with a grain of sand, we want to understand the universe. It's impossible.
Mhm.
Okay. It's impossible because actually there's not enough information for anything. It's just a grain of salt or a grain of sand.
Mhm.
So that's how limited we are in the third dimension inside this vehicle that has five senses or five, whatever, that you can call them. The senses are reading the environment in different ways.
Mhm.
But is that the reality? Is that all there is? Or there's something else? And that's a question that I started asking myself. And when I came to the United States, not only I found great musicians, but also great minds
Mhm.
that were related to science,
Yeah.
spirituality, physics,
Mhm.
biology, and neuroscience. And when I started reading that and watching videos and all this stuff, I wanted to meet them in person. I always go to the source, okay? Always to the source. So if somebody talks about, I don't know, something that Joe Dispenza said, I go to Joe Dispenza. If somebody talks about epigenetics, I go to Bruce Lipton.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want people translating that for me or interpreting something because usually it's like the broken phone. So when you start, telling the other one and the other one at the end of the chain, the message is completely different. So I always go to the source. And I found A Course in Miracles, Marianne Williamson. I found Epigenetics, Bruce Lipton. I found Heart-Brain Coherence, Ronnie McCray.
And
All
now
of
they're all in
all,
your documentary.
and then ended
Yeah.
up in a documentary but that was not the intention.
Right.
Because actually, for example, when I came here, already studied, I don't know if you know the Fourth Way, Gurdjieff.
Mhm.
That was school from an Eastern school that was very, very intense. Okay. And I learned a lot about that. For example, there was an exercise that I did when I was 20 years old, the exercise of the stop.
Mhm.
And the exercise of the stop is you were in meeting with people in a room and they were talking, and the teacher said, stop. You have to stop and realize what was in your head. What was the intention in your body? What were your movements?
Mhm.
How you were presenting yourself in that situation? And that makes you conscious or aware of the subconscious mind, whatever was working behind the consciousness, and that you are not conscious about it. And we have to understand that 95% of our day is subconscious,
Mhm.
okay? And very little is really conscious.
Mhm.
Unconscious is present time, but we are always projecting future and past, always, completely, always. We have an ego that is working all the time saying, okay, this is bad for you, this is good for you, based on experiences.
Mhm.
What experiences from the past and how do you project that to the future? But what's going on now in the present
Yeah.
moment? So we lose the present moment because we are thinking all the time, going back and forth
Mhm.
from things that we learn and things that we project. But I mean, what we learn is fine, but the projection may happen or not. It's something that, and we react to that. Is what Lipton talks about, our emotions and everything that happens to us that we project but never happen.
Mhm.
But it creates the biology because of the emotions that we create, all the chemical reaction, all the stuff, even though the present time has nothing to do with that.
Right.
So the thing is, when we understand that, we say, okay, I will always be in the subconscious mind for a long period of time during the day. But how long I'll be with an idea during the day that will create a frequency that will bring my present experience.
Mhm.
That's the main thing that we have that I'm working on.
Mhm.
Okay. How many times I'm anguished because of something?
Mhm.
How many times I'm stressed out because of something that I'm projecting
Mhm.
or something that is happening right now? Okay. But instead of thinking that way, go back to the present moment and say, what can you do right now in relationship to that? Don't go to the future, because the future, we don't know. We don't know what can happen. Maybe it won't happen. And we are thinking about something that is stressful.
Mhm.
And we are leaving the stress now for something that we're projecting in the future that may never happen.
Mhm.
But it creates the present right now.
Yeah.
And we don't know. And we call that luck or bad luck.
Mhm.
Okay? No, it's a creation. Well, it's all the time a creation. And we can talk about that later on. But the thing is this:
Okay.
when I realized that, I said, well, okay, what else can I learn here? And I went through different schools that were the fourth way from Gurdjieff mainly, and I didn't like them. So I ended up one day, I don't remember exactly how, I went through, I was driving from Sunset Boulevard going to Pacific Palisades, and then went down to the beach. And before, I saw a temple, beautiful temple.
Mm.
And it was the lake shrine from Paramahansa Yogananda.
Wow. Yeah, it's a beautiful
And
spot.
beautiful place. I fell in love immediately. So I went in there. I mean, the temple was not ready yet. It was not done. It was just the chapel down by the lake.
Oh, wow.
At that time, there was no temple. It was just parking lot. So I went there. I saw the windmill chapel. I saw the gardens. I saw the lake. The energy was unbelievable. I said, this place is amazing. I saw the choir. There was a choir singing, and I joined the choir.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I joined the choir because something told me, you have to be here.
Mhm.
And I stayed there for a couple of years. I helped when they started building the temple upstairs. I helped with the audio video system. I was part of the
Wow.
team.
Oh, wow. This
Put everything on the ceiling, and cameras, microphones, everything.
that's
So it was amazing. And then I did the Kriya Yoga full course of 2
Mhm.
years that they teach there. And that blew me away. And that was really amazing, understanding many, many things, the power of the mind, the heart, all the stuff.
Mhm.
Now, that was very, I mean, it was related to deep meditation, samadhi, all the stuff that is not easy, that you have to practice. Energization exercises, 38 energization exercises that you do before doing deep meditation to prepare the body. It's scientific. I mean, Paramahansa Yogananda was a scientist, actually, of spirituality and mind. And there's a science behind it. And he was really an amazing teacher.
Yes.
And when you follow what he teaches, it's much easier to go into deep meditation
Yeah.
and understand samadhi and what happened with him, all the stuff. So that was the beginning of a new search. When I met Paramahansa's teachings, then I realized that I wanted to know more things about different branches of science.
Mhm.
And then I read The Biology of Belief, and it was like an aha moment. Okay. Now, why The Biology of Belief for me was like the Bible? Okay. Because I was sick my whole infancy and
Oh,
when I was a teenager
wow.
until I was 20 something. My mom was a hypochondriac, and she was almost always having some kind of disease. And I grew up with that in mind. That was normal
Mhm.
to be sick. Okay. And she was very, very hard with me when I was in school. I had to have good grades and this and that. So she was like a sergeant in my house. And it was difficult for me because actually I had to be perfect and I had to do everything perfect.
Mhm. Wow.
And at some point, I realized that being sick, and this was when I was here, I realized after understanding many, many things, one day it came to my mind and it said, okay, that's what happened to me. When I was sick, my mother was the mother that I want.
Mm.
She was emotional, she was nurturing, she was tender. She was not a sergeant anymore
Wow.
because I was sick and I was in bed. So for me, it was a way to get close to her.
Mm.
Now, to realize that it's not easy, okay? Because actually, you have an idea that your mother is the best thing, blah, 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 blah. But in my case, it was not the best thing. It was really traumatic,
Mhm.
and it was reflected in my health. For you to understand, I had 4 bronchitis every year, 15 days each one with penicillin shots and all the stuff,
Wow.
nebulizations, asthma, all the stuff. I lost 2 full years between elementary school and you call it, one is elementary school and
Middle school?
which one?
Intermediate school?
Elementary school and middle school.
Mhm.
2 full years. I lost 60 days per year.
Wow.
For scholar year. Imagine. I mean, I was always sick. Okay. Now, when I have kids, I realize how crazy my house was, how crazy my relationship with my mother was, how bad the whole thing was, because my kids were never sick.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when you talk about the family tree,
Mm-hmm.
well, I think I chopped it off. Okay. It's a new tree, completely new
All the
tree.
work that you're doing on your subconscious and conscious
is reflected into my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I realized that I made all the mistakes, of course. Every parent makes mistakes, but I didn't repeat the same mistakes that I went through when I was a kid. So once I understood that, it was a huge weight that was on my shoulders
Mm-hmm.
that vanished immediately, and I was lighter, and I could be more in charge of my life.
Yeah. So, Jorge, tying together what you just shared about how your mom was a hypochondriac and growing up in that kind of environment, plus with this whole biology of belief, epigenetics conversation, subconscious versus conscious, what's like that connection that you're creating scenarios where you actually get sick because of the belief that there's something wrong with you, right?
Well, there's something called the comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
The comfort zone is not comfortable. It's the zone that you are most often, that you stay in that zone most often during the day, weeks, and months and years. You're used to that, even though you're suffering, even though you don't like it, even though you complain.
Mm-hmm.
But we have another thing going on. Every emotion creates a chemical reaction, and we get addicted to that chemical reaction.
And we just talked about
Now,
this in our previous episode with actually another musician, Coleman Trapp, with addiction to neurotransmitters and hormones being secreted in the body, cortisol.
exactly. We have a laboratory inside, and it depends on our thoughts and our emotions and our coherence or incoherence, and also our microbiome. So there are many things that create chemicals in our body. And you can have chemicals that are healthy for you and chemicals that are dangerous for you. Cancer is because you create so many chemicals that are acidic. You change the apoptosis information in the cell, it becomes an independent cell and grows until the whole body is dead. Why that happens? Well, because you created so many chemicals that creates acidity, inflammation, apoptosis, many things. And for a period of time, many years actually, it doesn't happen in months. It happens, for example, a tumor takes 7 years to show up as a physical thing. So you have 7 years to stop it before you can see it. But if you don't see it, how do you know that you are creating that inside your body?
Frequency.
Well, go inside and say, how do I feel most of the time? And there are two main emotions, love and fear. Everything else is like 50 Shades of Grey. It's the same thing. 50 Shades of Grey could be 50 Shades of fear, 50 Shades of love. So different things, but the chemical reactions are completely opposite. Love creates health and fear creates disease. If you are too long in that emotion, and if that's the force that is driving your life. Today, for example, when I have people in my sessions and we go through the heart-brain coherence, I can tell you that 95% cannot go into coherence unless I do an exercise that I learned from Paramahansa Yogananda, the Hon So.
I remember when we were at your studio with Clifton and you hooked us up to the heart coherence M-Wave machine and the Biowell machine. And you gave us that exercise. I think that you gave us 3 exercises. The first one was to think about something that makes you angry. The second one was think of something that you love or you feel grateful for. And then the third one was the mantra, Ham So. And what happened with you, Clifton?
Yeah, so my mind just went off because I thought it was so hum, and that's how it was passed to me. So I'm here trying to be peacefully saying it, but then my mind was like, wait, it's so hum, so hum. My mind was completely out of coherence in that exercise.
The good thing about these tools is that we can see what we feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like that's one of your major missions, right? Is you've taken a lot of your life experience and you've learned from the masters, so many great teachers, and you combine it into a documentary. You know, the next step for science is to be able to observe, measure, and create experiments to repeat, right? And so is that kind of where you're at now, or how? Take us through these more soft practices to hard science. I know that you have the Biowell, you have these M-Wave things. How did you transition into these hard science devices?
Well, they came to me because actually, when you follow a path, a lot of things just come to you.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what it is. It's not that I was looking for, but things were happening, every time I learned something out of the Honso, for example. I use a Soham. I know it's the same thing, but it comes from a different school. Now, it doesn't matter what you say. You can say whatever you want in your mind. The only thing that you have to do is to keep the frontal lobe, busy. That's the only reason why you do that. So when you do that, and I know you know this, but just for the audience, when you do that, and you keep the frontal lobe can do one thing at a time. It cannot multitask. That's a lie. You can change thoughts faster, but it's never overlapping. Never. The subconscious mind can do 1 million things at a time. It's doing it right now. It's doing it because the body is working because of the subconscious mind. So the thing is, what happens when you are doing the Honso and some idea comes that has nothing to do with the Honso? Well, that's in your subconscious mind, and usually that is not a good thing. That thing that comes to stop the Honso is your ego bringing something because it's afraid of losing power. That's the main problem there. So we have to understand the ego is survival. And it's a good thing because actually, if you touch fire and you burn yourself, next time you see fire, you don't touch it because actually the ego will tell you, listen, the experience that we had before, that's not going to be good for you. So don't do it. That's good. The problem is when you live in survival mode all the time. And survival mode could be triggered by anything, it depends on your perception of something. Now, one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and it was very difficult for me to understand, I came from the Course in Miracles, is everything is neutral. And you say, well, how can it be neutral? Well, it's neutral because actually in the duality that we live right now, nothing can be bad by itself or good by itself. It's always both polarities. Which one you are really being in tune with? There's nothing here that's absolute. In this world that we live in, the third dimension, nothing is absolute. So there's nothing that is pure love and nothing that is pure evil. It has both. So where am I? Well, what is my perception of that? Well, the association that I have with that thing that is happening. An association in perception is basically anything. I can think about anything. I can see the microphone and say this is bad or good. It doesn't matter. Adjectives are very human. They're not divine. They are not quantum. Quantum is absolute.
Can you give us an example of what you mean, Jorge?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I see something, I say this is good or this is bad. In relation to what?
I see.
In relationship to what?
Yeah, we don't have the bigger picture in what we're observing. We see like a specific snapshot in time, in linear time, and we may observe, oh, this is bad or this is good. But we can't exactly see like where everything is going or the plan of the higher intelligence and the universe. Can you dive into a little bit what the Biowell does and how you use the tool?
Yeah, is the energy field. It's not the aura. Is the energy field of the human being, and is using a Kirlian photography technology, which is not new. The new thing is the software that interprets the images of the 10 fingers.
Yeah. So when Clifton and I came over to Jorge's wellness studio, you have a sensor on the Biowell, and we put each fingerprint down individually. So you do your right thumb, right forefinger, your right middle finger, so on. Then you switch to left hand and you do the whole left hand. and
Exactly.
scans the body, and it looks at the meridians, the organ systems, the chakras.
Because he had three modalities inside the software. One is allopathy,
Mhm.
which is systems and organs, like
Western.
medicine, normal medicine.
Mhm.
Then Ayurveda, which is the chakra system,
Mhm.
which is emotional system. And then you have meridians of Chinese acupuncture. With those three, you are analyzing the whole system we call the human being from the energy point of view.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you
Now we
picture
have to understand that
actually of when you
the
put your
what?
fingerprints down, you get a picture of what the whole energy field looks like, where there might be deficiencies, irregularities, where things are smoother. Mhm.
Because each finger is related to different organs and systems.
Mhm.
So when you see the circle of the finger, it's like looking at a pie
Mhm.
that has slices divided by the meridians of the Chinese acupuncture meridians.
Mhm.
So when you have that, for example, the thumb, the right thumb, is related maybe is not, but it's like saying, okay, this portion is lungs, this portion is the liver,
It's
this part. So each finger has that
the
information.
map of the human
Okay,
bodies. And
exactly,
okay. Mhm.
exactly. So based on that, it gives you the image of the energy, the way is
Mhm.
distributed around the body. And now what we look for is interruptions or flares or emptiness. So when you see that, then you apply different things. Structured water, for example, you can see it in 15 minutes that improves the flow of the energy.
Mhm.
Now, the energy is like a river. The Bible is taking pictures of a river, it's moving all the time.
Mhm.
That's why you cannot do just one reading. You have to have four, and you get the average of the four because actually what repeats is true. Okay. But some things happen just once,
Mhm.
like in a river.
So one is before, one is you do an intervention, like drink the structured water. You do one after,
Yes.
or what are the other 2?
The first two is when the person comes to the session,
Oh,
one after the other one. So you see the baseline. The third one is after moving the heart, doing sit ups or
okay.
something, when you're agitated, because you need to see what happens with the energy field.
When you do exercise, right.
Yeah. And then when you calm down again,
Mhm.
so you see how fast the person goes back to a stable
Is that
state.
related
Mhm.
to heart
Some
rate
people,
variability or?
no, no, because heart rate variability is emotional
Mhm.
more than anything else. We need to know the physical first, then we go to the emotional and we see what's going on. But the heart brain coherence will show up in the chakra system. Is the first thing that you will see a difference. Okay. Now, the structured water, you'll see it in the energy field
Mhm.
because it has negative ions, it has a different kind of molecule, it has more oxygen. So immediately the river flows better. And you can see in the legs and the head mainly.
So are you finding uses for these technologies then to assess the different layers of people's bodies? You know, this first exercise is all around the physical body. You're testing and measuring, and the Hamso measures the emotional body. How did you come to these different kinds of tests? Because obviously, a tool is a tool. Like Biowell is Biowell, but it's how you use it, right? How did you?
They complement each other. They complement each other. I mean, that's what I realized. I started with each one's in a separate way.
Yes.
Okay. And then little by little, working on myself,
Yes.
I realized that they complement each other.
Mhm.
There's one part that is more physical, another part that is more ethereal, another part that is more mind.
Mhm.
So now there's something else because when you start working with frequencies, which is a whole new topic, we have to understand that we are like a radio station that transmits and receives the same thing that you transmit. It's like a radio. We are radio. And the thing is, being aware of what is that I'm transmitting is key for how your life is going to be physically, emotionally, mentally. If you don't know which frequency predominates in you every day, your life is like a tennis ball that goes from one side to the other one of the court, and you never know where it's going to end up.
Hmm.
We call that luck. which I believe, and I used to believe it was true, that we were lucky or unlucky. Not anymore. I don't see life as a chance. I see life as a design. The only way you can design if you know the tools. You cannot design anything if you don't know what tools you have and how to use those tools. So we have different tools. We have tools that are physical, for example, the microbiome, which is essential. And nobody, I mean, now is a lot of people are talking about that, SIBO and all the stuff that happens with the leaky gut.
We had a previous podcast guest couple, Erica and Dario of Kiefer Labs, who is all around helping the gut. So tune into that one to get more details about that. But keep going.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I love how the conversation from each episode of our guests is stacking to build a complete picture of what wellness is, of what consciousness is.
Well,
And yeah, thank you.
Those are complementary tools. If you
Yeah.
understand the information that each one of them is giving you, and you put all of them in a wider spectrum, you can have a better picture of what we are and where we are.
Yeah.
For example, Biowell doesn't cure anything. It's for preventive. We can say, I see this or that, and there's too much energy. What does it mean if I see too much energy in the prostate zone of a man that is over 50? Well, my question is, have you checked your prostate lately? And he will tell me, it's been 3 years since I went to that. Well, it would be a good idea to go and check it out to see what's going on, because I can see a lot of energy here. Now, accumulation of energy at some point is not good, because it means that it's working too much and it's asking for a lot of energy that could be allocated in other parts of the body that needs it. So you have to understand, if you don't have energy, you don't have health. And if the energy is stuck in some part of your body, that part of the body is the first one that is going to be sick. That's what it means. Okay. Now, I cannot tell you if you are sick or not, but I can tell you, check it out.
Right.
And if I tell you, check it out, and it's in the early stages, you can get rid of it very simply. Now, if you, for example, some people may come to see me and they already have cancer. They already have cancer and they know. And they're going through chemotherapy and radiation, all this stuff. Well, how can we use this technology? Well, this technology, the Biowell technology, gives us the information before and after, for example. So if the person is taking medicine that is pretty heavy, chemotherapy and radiation is very heavy for the body, we measure the energy before the session and after the session, and we see which organ and system suffer the most, and then we can, support that. For example, the liver is really suffering a lot because it has to filter a lot of chemicals. The kidneys also, different things. And say, well, okay, we have to support that. Okay. And you can see it on the screen. You can see how that organ and system change before and after.
Yeah.
So that's the way we use this. And we can use it with anything. We can use it with before and after meditation, before and after whatever. And you can see
the tool, Jorge. We were doing some tests at home and you were on the phone giving support for how to read the scan, and Clip and I did every single intervention. We did, like you said, before meditation, after meditation, before we did the vibroacoustic therapy bed, after we did that.
Exactly.
Yoga, after yoga, before I drink my morning drink, after. We got a little bit obsessed.
Well, no, but the good thing is that then you realize what is doing something good for you and what is not.
Yeah.
And then you can change your habit. We are people of habit. Human beings, we have strong habits. And sometimes we don't even see that, because it's so embedded inside us that we are so used to it.
Right.
That we don't realize that we have.
Jorge, you mentioned before, maybe if you could help our listeners understand a bit, you mentioned that sometimes people ping pong in their day to day, and it's about staying centered. How do they do that? Or what are some tips that you found to help them stay centered?
Well, to talk about that, we have to go to the frequency.
Yes, exactly. My favorite.
If we are radio stations, we need to be aware if we are broadcasting rap, classical music, country music, whatever it is. If we don't know what we're broadcasting, well, we are lost, completely lost. Whatever happens, happens.
And why is that?
Because actually the first thing is what I feel, what I think, what I say, and what I do. 4 frequencies. Those are the main frequencies that we have in a daily base. 4 frequencies. Now, if I go to a place and I feel something, because the first thing, the heart is faster than the brain.
Mhm.
So the thing is this: the heart, which is magnetic, goes into the brain that is electric, and it creates an electromagnetic field when they work together. Otherwise, two different things.
Right.
Which one is attracting more? I don't know. Which one is stronger?
Yeah.
So that's the one that is bringing your reality. Now, if after that you say something that it has, that is not working with the what you felt and what you thought,
Mhm.
because you have to, for example, fit in. You're in a room with other people. You go into the room and you don't feel comfortable, but you stay anyway. Okay, that's the first frequency the heart is giving you. I don't like these people. I don't like this place, but you stay anyway. Okay. If you are really coherent, you leave. You don't stay in a place that you don't feel well. There's no reason for that. But you stay because there's something behind that is saying, no, stay, okay, take a couple of drinks, whatever. You stay. Now, then you start thinking about, okay, I'm going to talk to that person or that person or that one. And you start listening to things. Some of them you sync, some of them you don't. Then you say something. Now, is that you, or you are trying to fit in and you're saying whatever? You don't even care about what you're saying. You just want to be there and be accepted. Third frequency. And then what are you doing with that? Okay. What is the body feeling? How do you feel? Is your body contracted? Is your body expanded? Do you feel that comfortable? Do you still feel that you are not yourself? Fourth frequency. So, which one is going to bring your reality? If you change the radio station every 5 seconds, you never listen to one song.
Mhm.
Well, if you don't listen to the song, that's like trying to bring into your reality whatever it is that you want to bring, and it's not enough. Because in 5 seconds, you don't know if you like the song or
Some
not.
people don't
You don't
know
even
what
know.
station they're on.
Exactly. And the other problem that we have, you are in a place that you don't like,
Uh-huh.
and if you're in a place that you don't like, you put the wrong station.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, you wanted to listen to classical music, but you want in the rap radio station. What do you do, or what people do normally? Criticize the rap because they don't like it.
Yeah.
What is the best thing to do? Change the dial,
Mhm. Yeah.
because that is another expression and it has all the right to be there.
Yeah. Change your focus and stuff.
It's not for you,
Yeah.
but it doesn't
So how
matter.
do
I
you
mean,
change
Yeah.
that
it
dial?
can exist.
Like,
Yeah.
Well, actually, what do you feel?
Mhm.
How do you feel? Do you feel, open? I mean, when I'm with Bruce Lipton, I feel completely open.
Mhm.
I don't have to pretend to be somebody else. But if I'm in a meeting where a lot of people want to do businesses and you have to impress them, and you're not yourself, you're selling yourself, you're selling something that you're not, and you don't feel well.
Mhm.
So when we talk about doing business should be a spiritual thing, which is not right now. That's for sure. It's completely material. It's completely third dimension. There's no quantum field on that. The quantum field, yeah, comes because it has to come, but it's not projected the way that we want it. That's why we say win-win situation. What does it mean, win-win situation? Because everybody's in the same frequency.
Mhm.
I don't want to take what is yours.
Mhm.
You don't want to take what is mine. And I feel great if you get what you need to get out of the deal.
And each person,
Right now, that
their
doesn't work.
alignment, I'll add to what you're saying, Jorge. That's what we talk about with being a quantumpreneur. That win-win scenario that you're talking about is like each person knows who they are, they know their role, they understand there's a bigger vision, they play different roles in that vision, and they know how they can
Yeah.
both play in accordance with their own blueprint for what's in integrity to their core essence and how they can win and win with the other person being that same
Yeah.
too.
Exactly. So your relationship is like a building. You put the little part and then you've ended up with a house. But if you are in a place where somebody wants to take over
Mhm.
and get more for himself or herself, you stop the construction. I mean, actually, it will never, it's like it's going to be chaotic. completely chaotic. Instead of having a roof, it's going to be holes and many things that you have to try to cover in a different way. Stress. Okay, so there are many things that we don't understand that are very simple, actually. They're not so complicated. The problem is we were never told about those things. Now, then we have heart-brain coherence.
Mm-hmm.
That's when heart-brain coherence is a very good tool, because actually we see the coherence not only with the sine wave, but also with the amplitude of the sine wave.
Mm-hmm.
For example, some people, when they come here and I go through, okay, let's say the level of stress, as you mentioned before. Think about something that's stressful in your life right now, okay? And I can see it. It's like it's peaks, like dents. There's no sine wave. It's all jerky.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, when it's stressful, you can the heartbeat go into peaks that are maybe it jumps from 80 to 110, which is the amount of palpitations. So that means that is a lot of stress. And if the person has a heart problem, it could be a very, very important thing to understand,
Mm-hmm.
because that idea is giving you that jump in your heartbeat, which is not good. So we look for between 60 and 70, a sine wave. When we have that for a period of time, you are in coherence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is it important to be in coherence? Because you're sending just one frequency to the quantum field.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that we did before this episode, actually. We did a quick heart coherence meditation to get in the same vibe as one another with Jorge and with every episode we do and every client that we work with. And I love the topic that you're talking about with that in business, Jorge, because it's important for all parties to be in a collective field of heart and brain coherence. Because when they're pulling for more, that is not them. That's their ego operating from maybe the solar plexus, that need for control, domination, power. That means the energy hasn't yet come up to the heart. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this in his week-long retreats, about how you bring the energy up to the heart so you could do coherence healing for other people. So to do business in this case, it's a good idea to bring energy to the heart.
Well, the way I use it is I measure myself the energy field and I do heart brain coherence. Now, when you see that you are coherent and you feel, this is a good thing, because actually I always tell the person that comes to visit, create a relationship between what you see and what you feel. Relate yourself. When you see that you were coherent, remember the feeling.
Yeah.
And then go back to that feeling. You can have HeartMath in your phone, in your iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, they made a deal with Apple, and you don't need to buy the sensor from HeartMath. You just buy the accessory for the iPhone, and you open the application, and then you do it. Just put the sensor in your earlobe, and you just open in the phone, and you can do 5 minutes any time of the day. When you need to make a decision for something,
Yeah.
don't make the decision from fear. Don't say anything from fear, because you're going to regret it. In the future, you're going to regret it. That's for sure. And it happens to all of us. Okay? You're not exempt for that. But the thing is, when you understand that what being in coherence means,
Mm-hmm.
the main thing for me is that you are in coherence, you are in theta, which is between 4 and 8 hertz
Of your brain waves.
of your brain waves. Now, theta is the best state of your brain and your heart
Mm-hmm.
to send the signal to the quantum field.
And theta is
Now,
that place in between being completely conscious and alert and that deep sleep. So it's kind of like a place of lucidity as you're falling asleep or going into a hypnosis or
Or just waking.
but induced by yourself consciously.
Yeah, consciously. Exactly.
Now, what you can use that, and it's related to the circadian rhythm.
Mhm.
And the thing is this: between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning, that's the frequency that matches
Mhm.
the theta wave. Because between 3:30 and 4, the circadian rhythm is the surface of, it's not deep sleep, it's surface of the sleep. You are sleeping,
Mhm.
but you are receiving.
Yes.
And that's when you are in that state, you wake up. If you if you ask the right question the night before, you go to sleep, you go into coherence, and then you ask the right question that you really need to, an answer. For example, how can I do something? What can I do to fix something? No, why is this happening always to me? It's a question that has an end in itself. What I tell you doesn't mean anything. Oh, because this is okay, yeah, but you are supporting the idea of something bad instead of looking for a solution. So those are two different ways of using
solution-based
frequency.
question.
It has to be an open question that you are looking for an answer. How can I? What can I do? Open questions that need an answer. So when you do that, the quantum field has no way not to give you that information back because it's a radio station, and those are the big radio stations. The quantum field has all the frequencies. Okay, every frequency,
radio station you can ever think of.
the biggest. But you are choosing the frequency. You are sending the frequency that you want to tune in. So where's luck? Where's luck? It doesn't exist. It's always you, consciously or unconsciously. Okay? There's no other way. When you see that, well, now I'm driving my vehicle. No, nobody else is driving my vehicle. I'm driving it. Because actually that's what it is. And another thing I tell, because I believe that everybody think about disease in a way that is a victim. You're not a victim of anything. You're a creator always, consciously or unconsciously. If you have cancer, unless it's something genetically created because you have hereditary, you have some chromosome, which is very, very rare. Based on Bruce Lipton's biology course, he's talking about 5 diseases that are related to the chromosome and the genetic information. Everything else is cultural. So the thing is, Japanese have different diseases than Americans and than Argentinians. Why? Well, because the information is different when you grew up. And those create different chemical reactions, and those create different diseases. We also have to talk about nutrition, all that stuff. But the main thing is the culture. What we call culture is the information that you got from since you were born until the 7 years of life. That information gives you the platform where you're going to be standing up and creating your life. Now, is that good or bad? Can you change it? Yes, you can change it. I change it. I already did when I was more than 30 years old. It takes time, but at first, it takes awareness. Because if you don't know what to change, you cannot change anything. First, you have to understand what is wrong that you are using bad, that is not good for you. Understand that you are addicted to that those chemical reactions, and then change the source. Now, the problem that we have right now, that very few work with cause, and everybody's working with effects. When we talk about frequency, we talk about cause. And when we talk about disease, we talk about effect. The only way to change the effect is changing the cause. Now, how strong is that idea is everything. When I talked to Anita Murjani, and she had a terminal cancer, who was Hodgkin lymphoma level 4, and she was 36 years old.
Wow.
With tumors in the whole body the size of lemons, and 2 lacerations here with pus coming out of it that they couldn't fix. And I saw the scars. When she went into coma for 36 hours and went out of the body, and she had a bad relationship with the father and all the stuff, and she talked to her father that died a couple of years ago before, and she was excused about all the things that she felt guilty about, because guilt is one of the worst frequencies you can feel. Okay? Guilt and shame. Those are the worst. They destroy you completely because they create chemicals that are really the worst for you. When she got the idea that she was no longer a bad person, she came back to the body.
Wow.
And she said, I'm cured. 2 months later, she has nothing.
Wow. Is this woman somebody you worked with or interviewed, Jorge?
It's in my documentary, yes.
Which documentary is that one?
Your Life, Your Creation.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Anita Murjani is there, and she talked about that. And when she talked about that, I said, wow, this is epigenetics, the best example, because actually that's what epigenetics means, that you change the genetic expression based on your emotions and the chemical reactions of your emotions. So everything, again, everything related to love will give you the chemicals that your body needs to nurture the whole system. Everything related to fear and I told you, guilt and shame are grace of fear. Those kill you if you keep them for many, many years. Now, do you know people? I imagine that you people that use. I came here like 36 years ago. I go back to Argentina and I see friends of mine that are my age from school. We were in school. And I can see that they are exactly the same and repeating the same things, and they have the same diseases, and they go through the same problems, and they don't even know why.
They don't even
And
realize
I
it's the
said,
same sometimes. They don't even recognize the pattern.
and they look at me and say, they don't understand because actually, yeah, I'm no longer that person. The person that they knew when we were kids, or when we were adults already. I'm completely different. And they ask me questions. And then I start explaining things. Some things they cannot understand because the only way, when you have this, when your life is so intense with these traumas, like it happens to me, the only way, or the fastest way, or the best way to stop those chemical reactions, those habits, is going far away from where you were born. Just change the culture. Just go somewhere else. Okay. It's not easy, but that's a very helpful thing. It's helpful like crazy because actually you don't have to try to change the society where you are in. You just move yourself to another place that you feel better.
Yeah, it's like the analogy of
And
the fishbowl, right? Like you have a sick fish, you don't try to treat the fish, you change the water, right? So you change the environment that the person is who's sick.
Because that environment
exactly.
has been
So
conducive for them, for the fish.
yeah, so when you do that, you are open to new things that if you stay in the same place, those things are not coming to you. There's no way. I mean, you're going to be there forever and you are going to die the same way. There's no question about that. And you're going to be so sick, so sick. And that's another thing that hits me when I started learning about Kriya Yoga. If you went to the lakeshore and you saw there's a gift shop and there's a little behind the gift shop, there's a lot of pictures and things that were from Paramahansa Yogananda. And also there's a picture when he died. I don't know if you know that the coffin was open for 28 days and he didn't spoil. And you can see that. And it's registered in different articles and in major
World Book records.
The paper. So the thing is this. When I read autobiography of a yogi, it's talking about when he said to the disciples, from this samadhi, I'm not coming back. He was not sick. He knew that his mission in this world, the third dimension, was already done. Now, in order for you to know that, you have to be in a frequency for a long time, understanding why you're here. Okay. And the moment that you achieve whatever you have to achieve, you said, no more of this because I don't need it anymore. So he said, from this samadhi, this deep meditation, I'm not coming back. And everybody was crying. And I said, no, don't cry. You keep going with my work. You already have everything. You don't need me anymore. I'm not coming back because you don't need me and I don't want to be here anymore. Now, when I analyze the way my parents and my friends' parents and everybody that I know left the body, it was not like that. It was always with a sickness that it was terminal, unless it was an accident. Okay. But if it's not an accident, it's always because there's some kind of sickness. Very, very few just die because of old age and the heart stop working. Usually it is a major disease. And when you die that way, you die in a different state of mind and a state of heart. For example, when I was working with the veterans and frequencies, they told me that veterans leave the body in a panic attack. Especially they are religious and they kill people in the war. The guy that came to see me was 80 something, and he was in every war, from the First World War to the Afghanistan war, everything. And he said to me, these people, when they die, they are around 90 years old, they grab the bed. They don't want to leave the body because they think they are going to hell. So we were using different frequencies, and some of them could leave the body in a completely different state, more calm, like 80% less fear, all that stuff. So when you see that, you say, wow, man, this information is so different than how Paramahansa Yogananda left the body. It's completely different. And he's a human being like any of us. So there's something that he knows that we don't know. And my parents left the body the same way, suffering like crazy, completely sick. My father had cancer. My mother had a stroke. And they left the body because they were trapped in a body that didn't work anymore. But their mind still was here and was grabbing the body like, no, I don't want to leave. So for me, that was a major lesson. So what I'm doing right now, it's understanding, why am I here right now? Okay, stop looking out there, go inside and see, okay, what can you do? Right now, we as a species, we are in a chaotic state. And we don't know what's going to happen, with the AI and all this stuff that is going on, all this stuff. We don't even know what's going to happen with a human being. So we have to go back to the individual, and from inside out, emanate the frequency that we want to bring into our present moment. And through the example, some people come and ask you a question. Oh, you are different. I see you, and I see that I feel something different from you. So some people will come and they will be, oh, I want to do whatever you're doing. And I can see that as part of the change. Otherwise, you cannot force anybody to change. That's not your mission. That's not your function. And when you do that, the only thing you create is hate towards you. That's my experience.
So Jorge, tying together about what you're sharing about current events and the work that you're doing, what would you say is your personal mission?
Now I'm concentrated on energy, vibration, and frequencies, because actually I believe it's all there is. There's nothing else. Everything else is a representation of that. We see and we touch, and this is very convincing because our five senses are so limited that this is the only thing that they can understand. And that's the experience that we do in this third dimension. Now, if we believe that this is the only thing that exists, well, our life is going to be very, very narrow and very constricted, basically. Now, if we understand that we are beyond the vehicle, another thing that I understood a couple of years ago is the vehicle is giving me an experience. When I when I drive my car, it gives me the experience from going from point A to point B. The body is exactly the same thing. The one that is driving the body is the spiritual being inside, that is the driver. Now, the only thing that can choose is what experience do I want to have in any moment, okay? Is really this the experience that I want? Or I want to feel love, or I want to feel creative, I want to do the good things, I want to see other people can grow and flourish in anything that they want to do. So that is my purpose right now, to bring all this information into daily life of everybody. And I want to do a series of a documentary. It's a 6 episodes about energy, vibration, and frequency, because it's a lot of information. You have so many. You have light frequency, scalar energy, you have arrive, you have sound, you have so many things. So if you do one documentary, it's going to be 3-4 hours. So the only way that I see it is in episode, and focus more into, for example, the energy of food, the energy of thoughts, the energy of the microbiome, the energy of the scalar energy, the torus energy. Everything has some kind of function in the way we live. And if we understand which one works when, and we use the way that we should, and that should be taught in school, but it's not. So we should have grown up with that information, but we don't have that information. And so you have to look for it. Now, A lot of people, because of the chaos and the entropy that we are living in, because it's huge, a lot of people are opening their minds and looking for more information. So the thing is, that is creating a lot of questions now that before nobody was asking. And you can see that everywhere.
A lot of people are waking up. People that I didn't think would wake up. You start the path a few years in, and then other people start to join you, and you're like, "Oh, wow, this one is understanding, and this one is seeing the big picture." Sometimes it's like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah. So now when you send frequencies, you feel something different. Okay. And that feeling, when it's working together in coherence, it gives you more power. Okay. And that's bottom line, bottom line. Now, music, for example, when you talk about music, there's all other things that you can do. I mean, music and A440, that's the music that we are listening. Well, let's start working with A432.
Yeah, and there's so many
432,
solutions, and you're such a wealth of knowledge, Jorge. And we're moving towards the final part of this episode, and it sounds like there'll be many more with you because you just have so much wisdom that is just pouring out. Yeah, a 4-part series, right? And you kept talking about the vibration, and there's so much preparation that needs to happen before we can actually dive into the vibration. I want to just sort of tease what you're working on with vibration as we wrap up, so that way we can pick up where we left off in our next episode. But we've covered so much. I feel like this was like a master class in and of itself of decades of long work. And it's been amazing to listen to and be a part of.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a huge topic, okay? A human being is a huge topic, and reality is a huge topic, and frequencies is what creates this that we experience as our lives, as our reality. And as one of the things that is always hitting me is I don't want to live something that is not, that it hasn't have a purpose, okay? It has to have a purpose. And whatever I'm doing right now, it has a purpose. And the purpose is, first of all, is to improve my own life. When I see that my life is changing in a positive way, then I put it outside for other people to see it, experiment with it, and use it, or not, whatever. It's independent. Free will is something that everybody has. And free will is part of the equation. You cannot force anybody into anything. Now, you can show things, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of different technologies that now allows us to see the results. That before it was just word of mouth, or we depended on somebody else telling us. I'm against the diagnostic because actually right now, anything that you can diagnose is almost anything, you can change it. So diagnostics, as Bruce Lipton said, usually is a sentence. And I remember talking to Wayne Dyer 2 months before he died, and he mentioned a friend of his that was diagnosed with cancer, terminal cancer, and a lung cancer, and he says, you have 6 months to live. 6 months later, he died.
Wow.
His wife went to the office, took everything from the office, and found another X-ray from 30 years ago with the same darkness in the same place in the lungs.
Wow.
30 years ago. But nobody gave him any sentence of the diagnostic of 6 months of living time.
Wow.
So what happened with that? When you get that information, which is very strong, and you believe on that, you die in 6 months, because actually your body is creating everything that it needs to die in 6 months. Now, when you don't know, you keep doing your life, living your life. Now, another thing that is interesting, and Joe Dispenza talks about this, when you laugh for 1 hour, 500 genes that work against cancer are activated. So in my car, I have Sirius XM, and I have 4 different jokes radio stations. And when I drive, I laugh.
That's awesome.
Because actually I know that I'm activating the things that I need from my genetic code,
Wow.
Yeah.
my genetic expression. And that's epigenetics at the maximum level. Okay?
Wow.
See, Clifton, that's why we liked watching Beverly Hills before bed for an
Yeah,
hour.
just laughing. We went everywhere, and it comes back to enjoying life and laughing. And there's science and cutting edge innovation coming through, Jorge. So when can listeners catch a glimpse of what you're working on, catch a glimpse of your project, and get a hold of you?
YourLifeYourCreation.com is a documentary, and there's a lot of information there. And then YourNewHealing.com is where I talk about the 4 principal things that I'm using. I mentioned before: Biowell, structured water, HeartMath, and earthing. Earthing is also important because we have a lot of frequencies that are very bad for us, and we have to be in touch with the earth so we can discharge that. And a lot of people don't discharge anything for years when they live in an apartment building, and then they use sneakers and rubber soils and then that kind of stuff. The soils that are rubber, it keeps you completely separated from the ground, and we need to be grounded. So those are things that are very simple and actually make a big difference, not only in the health of the person, but also in the quality of life. Okay. And also understand that the quality of our life is also based on the quality of our question. What do we question ourselves every day? What are the questions? I'm always a victim and saying, why is this happening always to me? Well, there's something that you have to, it's a polarity that you're sending out, and you're going to bring the same thing. And it's a matter of fact that if you don't change yourself, the next one is going to be worse because it's a lesson. You are learning something that you're not learning. Actually. It should be learned, but you are not learning. So the next one, if you get rid of this, which is a teacher, the next one is going to be worse than this one.
Yeah, change your life, change your questions. I love it. And Jorge, it's been such a pleasure here. I know we could go on for hours more. We're definitely going to have you back on again. We're going to dive deep into vibration. I think we've laid the foundation for it. I don't know. Maybe we'll go deep into some other areas of your journey to set that frame. And I'm so excited that you're working on this project because you have such wealth of knowledge and such great backing and foundation in science. You live and breathe it. It is your beingness-based business. You work in the quantum. You are a quantumpreneur, and
your passion.
Yeah. And so we're so grateful to share this time with you, and we'll catch you all in our next episode. But for now, I'm Clifton.
And I'm Victoria. And together we're Faces of the Future. We'll drop the links to all the projects Jorge has talked about in the show notes below. And what is a way that listeners can reach out to you personally, Jorge?
Well, my email is Jorge Patrono, my name,
at
hotmail.com. And also I have a WhatsApp, which is +1 818 601 3719. I'm open to receive any information from anybody that has a question.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for tuning in. And we'll talk to you all next time.